Hello and welcome back to In the Business. In this episode, we spoke to Nick Hampton, who's a tax expert and entrepreneur, and we spoke to him about all things tax that young people should know. And also heard his story, how he started his businesses, and much more. So enjoy the episode. Nick, thank you very much for joining us.
Morning, Tom. Thank you very much for having me.
Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself? Because you've been involved in accountancy and entrepreneurship for quite a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, so for me, so where I am now, so I currently have an accountancy practice. We have a networking group for businesses and connecting different businesses. And we've most recently started a podcast as well. Obviously not quite up to your standard, but we've got to start somewhere, right?
No, I'm sure yours looks amazing. So what sort of initially drew you into the world of entrepreneurship? What sparked that initial curiosity?
I think probably if I went all the way back, maybe aged 12, 13. So at 12, 13, I was always encouraged. So, I'm sure I could sit here and talk about broken homes and parents divorcing and tough upbringing and what have you. But that's all to me, that's just life lessons, and you learn from it, you gain from it, you move on. And probably about 12 years old, my stepdad used to sell double glazing. So if you've ever seen whatever that thing is, Liquid Gold, or the sitcom or whatever with about double glazing, it was very much like that. So everything was, try and find somewhere to get a deal, and and he used to go down to a market stall to stand there and try and pitch people about how important it was to have double glazing, which again was a great scam in the 90s and 80s and whatever.
Yeah.
And he then decided to have a stall by the side of it, selling just general confectionery. And if ever you've seen like the Del Boy type things, like multi-pack can must not be separated, there's me separating these things up, 12 years old going, well, I'll help. And it took me about 3 weeks to realize that I was faster at doing numbers than he was. I was able to sell to people. And I don't know whether it's like this 12-year-old coming up to people trying to pitch to them and everyone just thought it was cute, or whether I had a skill at it. But either way, it worked out pretty well that I was better at selling than he was. And so it took me 3 weeks for him to say, I'll tell you what, why don't you bring one of your friends? I'll pay them the same as I pay you. And I instantly went, whoa, no. And I think I was getting 20 quid a day to do this. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, you give me 50 and I'll look after it. And I spoke to my mate and said, I'll give you 15 to come and help. Yeah. So now I've gone, I'm 20 quid to 35 quid. Then after that, I went, hang on, if I now don't take the money in cash, if I take it in stock, I can then take it to school and sell it, because then I can turn 35 quid probably into 80 quid. Yeah. And so actually it turned out it was like quite a profitable exercise.
Yeah.
And for me, I look back and go, do you know what? That's kind of business from the get-go.
From the get-go.
Yeah, 12, 13 was where I was. And
so that's when you knew you wanted to start something, do you think? Like you've always had that feeling.
I think it was just more a case of going, well, I think there's just more depth in this, because as you know, there's no teaching of this in school. You might get like a business studies or something else like that. But it's the theory. It's it's not the practical. You can actually do this.
Yeah.
So to actually see it and see that 20 quid became 35 quid, became 80 quid on basically doing the same thing, to me, that was an entrepreneurial spark. And ever since then, it's been, that's what I want to try and do and find ways to do that.
Sure. Well, take us back to those sort of school years. What did you go to university, or did you take a different route?
School was school. Right. So I think I got to about 14 and lost all interest. Now, I always say I was very, very, very lucky that I was born with a brain that works pretty well. I don't put this down to, I was well trained or anything else like that. It's just I have a brain, and, I haven't been tested, but I've probably ADHD, ADD, something along the line somewhere. It works like a computer. It works very fast. So, for example, I never did any homework at school, but I never got detention because I could talk my way out of it. But everything was, if there was a problem like in maths, it was just easy, and everything I could just solve very quickly, but without really putting in any work, because I didn't like school. So I did school, got my GCSEs, which were okay, went to sixth form, and after about 7 months in sixth form, I went, this is a load of crap, and there's nothing I'm being taught now that I'm really going to use in future life. And if it helps, so I was doing further maths at Northgate.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in a further maths class. They had a video playing, so it shows how long ago it was, right? They had a video playing, and there was Johnny Ball, and he was talking about finding a formula behind chaos theory. And I'm like, hang on, you want us to sit here and create a formula behind what makes things random that people have been doing for 50 years and no one's ever been able to do it? This is just literally like a fool's errand. When the hell am I ever going to use this in
Yeah.
life? And so at that point, I went, these skills are now pointless. There is
Yeah.
nothing I'm learning now that I'm going to need in later life. And at that point, pretty much I walked out the door and just said, yeah, I'm done with this. I'm not doing it.
So what did you do after when you walked out the door? What was your thinking?
So,
What
so,
were you
so
going
I
to do?
walked out the door and thought, yeah, okay, now I'm going to make it in the big wide world. And obviously, my mum was not particularly happy with me for just walking out. But okay, sarah, sarah. So I think I had like 10 days at McDonald's because
Yeah.
but everything that I saw was always a case of I'd start at the bottom, but in my head was, but I'll be the boss of this in like 2 years, 3 years. So I did like 10 days, but I got too annoyed that they like had me doing, I think, like McPizza station and this and what. And I'm like, hang on, I've got a brain for numbers. Just put me on tills.
Yeah.
I can just work these tills faster than anyone. But because I had a boss and I went, yeah, they don't see this, right? Okay, I'm done with that. I did Zenith Windows, so I did like telesales for 10 days where,
All right.
oh yeah, if I pitch like this and I'm gonna convert 150 leads, I'm gonna be a millionaire inside of 6 months. And went, yeah, okay, that's not how it works. Basically, you just phone people up and get them to shout abuse down the phone at you and hang up. And I went, yeah, I can't do that. So at that point, I decided, okay, fine. I've got a brain for numbers. I like money. Accountancy is where I'm going to go because I thought it will obviously just make me millions inside of 10 minutes because that's what happens. Um, and I went to like a training provider. So it's probably like a WS training or whatever it is nowadays or college called iTech. And they were ones to do like an MVQ where I could do an MVQ and work towards an AAT accountancy qualification, but also go to work.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. It didn't quite work out because they only enrolled once a year and I've missed it by like 9 months, 10 months or something. So instead we did, like I did a business administration NVQ, but I did it just because I could then enroll with the training provider and they could find me a job, but they wanted to find me a job in accountancy. So it took about 2 days from me enrolling to me starting to work in a firm of accountants in Woodbridge.
Okay. Sure. Then you're actually on the job learning
And then
and
I was on the
earning.
job, and that's where I then found my passion because like I'd gone through school and gone, I'm not interested. I've done this. I'm not interested. I thought I knew it all. I thought I was the smartest person in any room I ever walked into. And
Yeah.
then I went into that practice. I met my boss and went, oh, I don't know this stuff, and this guy knows more than I do. Now I
Yeah.
have to soak this up like a
Now you're
sponge.
actually growing because you're
But
in a
but it
tricky
was
situation.
fascinating what he was
Yeah.
teaching me because it was, as much as people kind of accountancy is really dull, a lot of it is dull. I mean, I can't lie this bit, so you just go, yeah, this is. But when you see the difference you can actually make in someone's life, when you think, well, actually, just because I know law, I know legislation, I know the loopholes, I know what you can do, I know what you can't do, to be able to take someone and go, yeah, normally they'd pay £20,000 in tax because no one cares or no one's going to go deep enough into it, and I can turn 20 grand into 10 legally and put 10 grand more in their
That makes it sound
pocket.
more exciting now.
That's a bit more
Now
exciting
we're
for me than
talking.
like
Yeah.
going, yes, okay, I've tapped all your numbers into a spreadsheet
Yeah.
and the outcome is, just
Well,
pay taxes.
talking about tax, are there any misconceptions you see across the board for
Yes.
people,
There's
businesses?
thousands. There's thousands. So for example, one of the good ones is, HMRC didn't pick it up. And people, so they could claim for anything. Oh, I claim for haircuts. I claim for, the trip abroad. I claim for a holiday. I claim for my house. I don't know, whatever. And you kind of go, you can't do that, right? And they, yeah, but I did it last year, and HMRC didn't say anything about it. It's like, yeah, HMRC didn't just look at it. That's all it is. When they look at it and they send an inspector out, they're going to bring all hell and fury down on you
Yeah.
because you've done something that's absolutely wrong. So that's a great common misconception. All accountants will do the same job. That's a common misconception. Honestly, it comes down to passion. It comes down to care. Tax law is black and white. That's a joke. So tax law is like, from a tax inspector, they said 20% of things you definitely can do, 20% of things you definitely can't, and 60% is grey, and you just argue. And that's the truth in accountancy. I mean, I'll give you a bizarre example because people sort of go, well, no, because obviously it just says you can or you can't. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. So I have a client, and basically what they do is they do lead gen. So what they do is they find leads for people and sell them on to other companies that actually want them. So the original law and I'm not going to do VAT and Jaffa Cake because everyone does this one. So the original laws stated that if someone rings up and says, I'd like to inquire into doing this, and a human is on the end of the phone, and they qualify the lead in financial services, it becomes non-VATable because it's a qualified lead, there's actually skill involved. If on the flip side, someone just puts a name and address in a form on a computer screen, so they go to a web page, there's a landing page, they put the details in and it gets passed, that becomes marketing and it becomes VATable, right? So nice and easy. Then the area's blurred because then what happened was there was a situation where a computer was pre-qualifying people with like 72 questions. HMRC argued, yeah, but it's automated, so VAT applies. Someone else argued and said there's more questions being asked by this computer than would be by a person at the end of the phone. This is totally qualified, non-VAT, and it was agreed no VAT, right? So this was what was then agreed. So I have a client that pre-qualifies with 30 on a computer screen, and they say to me, so where does it fall? And I'm like, 74, I know what happens there. 3 happens there. What happens with 35? And no one will give you an answer. HMRC will say, we can't tell you. No one will be able to give you a decision. So you end up almost having to wing it and go, look, let's do this, let's try and find a practical solution because there's no way you can actually get an answer. And stuff like that happens all the
Across
time in
the board.
tax law.
Yeah.
It's across the board in every single area. You can argue about dog food, you can argue about, Greggs, for example, if you take the Greggs scenario, so Greggs sausage rolls are cheap because they're non-VATable because they're considered to be cold even though they're hot. So
Really?
Greggs has the glass that's curved that keeps the heat in, but they argue, no, it just means people can see them easier. It's not hot prepared food. It just so happens that their sausage rolls are so popular that they sell before they can cool down. Non-VATable. But if it's prepared food, then
What
it's
is the
VATable.
what is the legislation on that? Can you sort of break that down a bit? So
which
food.
one do you want to know? It's insane, right? So hot prepared food, VATable, but cold food that doesn't necessarily have to be hot, non-VATable, right? And you could go to the nth degree. So it used to be like a McDonald's milkshake. A McDonald's milkshake used to fall under this category. So if you ate it in or drank a milkshake in McDonald's, it was VATable because it was luxury food and it was a milkshake. But if you took it away, it was non-VATable because it was milk.
Blimey.
Guess what? That's how. I mean, some
That's
of this
incredible.
is quite interesting.
That is really interesting.
But when you actually understand the complexities of what it is, and I think this is where people go, oh, AI can take care of this. It's like, it can't because it will never understand the complexities of what can and can't happen. And, there was like a court case that happened about what was considered protective clothing. So a judge or a barrister or something wanted to claim for their outfit for what they wore for work. And it was argued by a tribunal that there was a duality of purpose. So because it would also keep them warm, that was the ruling that decided it had a duality of purpose. It wasn't wholly and exclusively for business, non-allowable, right? Then a stripper claimed for her skimpy outfits. They argued and went, no, because you can wear those out. But because the case law said under duality of purpose, it was for keeping warm, because these outfits were so skimpy, they couldn't fall under that, which therefore they were allowed to claim for skimpy outfits.
Blimey.
So when you suddenly think that it's like, you get people who just go, oh yeah, my mate knows this, and you go, no, your mate's going to know the basics, but to know this level and depth, you only pick it up with experience.
I feel like a lot of young people hear this and they hear tax efficiency, they hear tax, and they just completely shut off. Now, you see it as the difference between a business surviving or thriving. Can you dive into this a little bit and explain that?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Tax is not a scary thing. It's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
If you pay taxes because you're doing well. Okay. When I first started RSED, I used to challenge myself for every quarter I wanted to pay more VAT. Because if I pay more VAT every single quarter, it means I'm doing better, right? So instead of thinking that, oh, it's a horrible thing, it's a scary thing, it's not. It's actually, it shows that you're being successful. Okay. So there's like step one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With things like VAT, again, as people see as like a horrible thing, as a scary thing, it's not really, because for example, if I decided to do some work for someone, I'm going to add VAT, right? That VAT is not my money in the first place, but I've got it now sitting here that I'm collecting on behalf of HMRC. However, when I then decide to go and buy a laptop, that laptop now costs me less money because I can reclaim the VAT on it, where poor Joe Public can't get that money back. I can then. So I kind
Yeah.
of get free money for being VAT registered. So I'm okay with like VAT and how it works. But in terms of taxes, I think the more you understand it, the more you can find that you can, I wouldn't say manipulate because it's too bad a word, but you can definitely play the system. So, golden rule number one, absolutely declare every penny you ever earn, right? That's a given, it's a rule, it's a golden, but speak to an accountant because a lot of the time people will go, oh, I made 800 quid in this. And you go, oh, there's an income allowance. You can claim the flat £1,000 expenses. No tax. Don't worry. HMRC don't care if you do 3,000 on the side hustle. They just said, don't even tell us about it. We're not that interested. So there's certain levels where you have a de minimis where people go, well, yeah, but I'm a bit worried about this. I'm a bit worried about that. It's like, don't just talk to someone. For example, we'll happily talk to anyone for free. First call, have a chat and we'll talk you through it. But as you get like bigger and bigger and bigger and you start making more and more and more money, then understanding how the tax system works. And the more you understand about it, the more you can hold on to your money and give less to HMRC. So, as young people going through, they should strive to make as much as they possibly can, but also hold on to it from HMRC. And they might go, well, there's a certain level where until I hit that point, I don't need an accountant, or an accountant is just going to be here to record my numbers. Now, I think traditional old school accountants may well have been, oh yeah, you bring me your books and I'll tell you what your tax is and I'll give you some paperwork you don't understand. That's what it used to be. But now they're actually a business advisor. So I get people that come to me. Now, obviously, we do things a little bit differently to normal accountants and, sue me for doing it. But bear in mind, I spent the first 2-3 years with this business doing what I thought accountants should do. Because everyone does that. So anyone starting a business, they all have this imposter syndrome and go, let's look at what everyone else is doing and just go, oh, like I'm a marketeer, so I should do this. Or, I want to be the next Google, so I should have a slide inside. Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But people look to what everyone else is doing. So I did the same thing. So it's, yeah, we'll turn up in suit and tie and we'll do this and we'll do that. And after about 2-3 years, I went, you know what? I'm sick of this. This is my business. If I can't decide how I'm going to do this, what the hell am I doing it for? So I decided, do you know what? We're just going to do things how we want to do it. So suit and ties went out, hoodies came in. There was no one could dress us like a total after scruff if we had clients in. But otherwise, it's like, look, do you know what? Just relax what you're doing a little bit. Be comfortable at work. Do what you need to do. And so from our point of view, we just changed the business slightly. So now we have people that, if I have a meeting on a Friday at 4 or after, it's tea, coffee, or beer gets offered to our clients. And the reason being because they'll come in and have a normal conversation about their business. But their business, it might well be just have a sounding board, talk about what you're doing for your marketing, talk about what you're doing for your advertising, talk about your sales process, talk about your systems, talk about this. And good accountants, as crazy as it sounds, are like such a font of information because we see hundreds of businesses every year, right? Hundreds. And they come across our books and we see which ones are making money, which ones are struggling, why they're struggling, who's successful, who's not, and all the reasons why. We could literally probably go into any industry and advise anyone on any industry to say, if you do this stuff, you'll be successful. If you do this stuff, you'll fail. Because we've seen tens, hundreds of businesses doing exactly the same thing.
What is
So we know what
something that someone can do to be successful? You say there's things that you see that are successful and unsuccessful.
So rule number one, don't think it's coming easy. It's not. It's a lot of hard work. If you think you're going to set up a business and do 4 hours a day and you're going to be a digital nomad in Bali, good luck. It ain't happening, right? That shit
That's
doesn't
been a
happen.
common theme across our podcast. All our guests say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of graft, right? Secondly, have passion for what you do. If you don't love it, you won't do it. You'll quit. And it's very easy to quit if you don't love it. So, for example, you guys could sit here and do podcasts all day, every day. You might look at your stats, you might look at your numbers and go, we were hoping for more, we were hoping for less. This is better than we thought, it's worse than we thought. But after a while, you'll just quit if you don't enjoy it.
If you don't enjoy it, yeah.
But if you love what you're doing, you never have to work, which is brilliant, right?
Yeah.
So find something that you love. You can pretty much make money anything in the world you want to do, right?
Yeah.
There's a way to monetize it. And if someone can't see a way to monetize it, please come and ask me because I'll probably tell anyone how to make money at kind of anything. So love what you do. And the golden rule is there's 4 elements of your business in any business. And I don't care what career anyone's in. I'll take a challenge on this one. These 4 things, if you ignore any one of them, you'll probably fail, right? So here's your 4 things. You must know how to market or find someone to market your business for you. Okay. If you don't market, no one knows about you. If no one knows about you, you can't get customers. You must be able to sell. Now, if you have a really good marketing strategy, so you go along and pitch yourself out and market as the cure for cancer, you don't really need a strong sales pitch because you just need a website that says, come and buy it, because you've got strong marketing, but you must be able to sell. So there must be a way to convert a lead into a customer or a sale. You must have a strong finance system. Okay. Now, if you can pitch to someone, you can sell to someone, but you don't invoice them, you don't invoice them on time, you don't record this, you don't chase it, you don't collect your money, it's even worse than not having a customer, because now you've done stuff and not been paid for it. So you must have a strong finance function, and you must be good at doing whatever it is your business is to do. So that applies if you're a lawyer. You've got to market, you've got to sell, you've got to be good at being a lawyer, and you've got to have a strong finance function. If you're a hairdresser, if you're a plumber, if you're a marketeer, if you're a digital nomad in Bali, whatever it is, you must have those 4 things. Now, you can take your eye off the ball on some of those things. So, you might decide, I'm going to run for 2 months and I'm not going to worry about my credit control because I've got enough money coming in and it's fine, and then come back to it. But if you ignore any of those 1 of 4 things for too long, your business is dead.
Yeah. Do you still think about those even now your business is
Yes.
set up?
All
You're
the
still
time.
going back to those
All
principles?
the time, because if everyone, the most important thing to do, and I think it was an Einstein who said this, said the mark of true intelligence is being aware of what you don't know rather than being proud of what you do.
Yeah.
So what you should do is all the time. I mean, remember, I started when I was 16, 17, I knew everything. Okay. As I went older and older and older, I learned all the stuff I didn't know. And when you know all the stuff that you don't know, that's where you then go, right, I'm going to recruit people to be strong where I'm weak.
Yeah.
So if I know I'm shit at marketing, great, I'll just find someone who's a great marketeer, because
Okay.
they're going to do this for me. I can't do this. I'm not great at it. And if I'm not great at it, why am I spending my time doing something that's going to be awful?
Yeah.
I can't design a flyer. So if I need a flyer, if I try and design it, it's just going to look awful. And it's going to take me 4 times as long as someone who's got skills to do it.
Yeah. So accept that you can't do everything, and
So
other people
just
do things
embrace
better.
that you don't know everything, and you're not supposed to know everything. I say to our clients, probably 80% of our clients who pay me money, I would challenge them to say, I'll save you more than I'll cost you.
Yeah.
Whether it happens to be tax, whether it happens to be in time, in systemizing their processes, in helping them with their business, we'll save them way more money than they're ever going to pay us.
Yeah.
But people will think, oh, hold on, haven't got like 300 quid to give an accountant to do a tax return, or I haven't got this, or I don't have this. And you think, no, you've got no idea, because you just think you're going to put your numbers in. And, I mean, I'll give you a great example. It's one of my first clients I got here. And he came to me and he said, Nick, can you look after my self-assessment for me? But like when I go into business. And I said, well, who's doing your current one? And he said, well, because I've been in a partnership, like the partnership, and bizarrely enough, that was over in London as well. It's Covent Garden. He had a business partnership, and he said, oh no, the accountant for the partnership does it for me. He just gives me the number. I put it in my self-assessment, and I pay my tax. So I said, okay, fine. Can I have a look at it? Sure. So I had a look at it for him, and I said to him, I said, do me a favor. I said, I've got one question I need for your current accountant. Just send him this question. So he sent the question, and the answer came back, and his tax bill went down by £8,500. Okay. It cost him I told him I'd do his tax return for 79 quid. So it cost him 79 quid to save £8,000. And he
Yeah.
said to me at that point, he said, right, he said, well, that's paid you for the next 100 years. I said, well, I'm not doing it for 79 quid every year. He said, all right, fine, well, I'll pay you for the next 50 or whatever. But that's the reality of things. Sometimes to just talk to a professional, because, there are going to be some out there that will just say, oh yeah, come here, give me your money. And that's all they're interested in. But for me, because I had, if I go all the way back to when I was 16, 17, I had a business mentor there that I didn't realize was my business mentor. He was my boss. He was the enemy. He was the person who never paid me enough money. He was oh, well, he wants me to work harder and longer and what have you, and I don't get any rewards for this. And like the devil.
Yeah.
When I left, and like 10 years on, 15 years on, I went, hang on a sec. I had one of the best business mentors I could possibly have, who fast tracked me through accountancy, set me up in such a way that I feel I'm like top 10% in my industry. And it's all because what I learned 16, 17 from this guy. So, I think sometimes what you have to do is you have to see what's there, embrace it as you go along, because it's going to shape everything you do moving forwards.
Sure. Okay, so well, tax is it's mentioned a lot in the headlines. So I was wondering, how do you actually stay on top of all these changes with governments coming in and out, and what are some of the changes that have happened recently?
So, so you, they happen all the time. So yeah, it's very tough because we're only a small firm. There's only six of us here, so it's not like I have a team of like 364 tax experts that are sitting watching the budget just
Yeah,
to analyze it for me. But what we do is we always try and do the best we can, and what we're always looking for on the budget is the stuff that's relevant to our clients. So we stay in our lane, right? So for example, I won't do charity accounts. They're complex and they're specialist, and I don't have enough charities around to go, it's worth me spending my time focusing on that. We won't do solicitors. Again, they're complex, they're difficult, they have their own rules. And we won't do really big companies. So we try and stay in our lane to say, look, we know what we're interested in. We know what our core client is. And so when someone comes out and says, oh, we've got a Freeport site or such and such is going on a size well, and so and so can pitch for a £63.8 million contract, I'm like, good, that's not my clients. I don't care. I don't have to pay attention to it. But it allows me to focus on the stuff that's relevant to my clients. So if I can find something that's for my client where it's oh, by the way, they've opened up a loophole on entrepreneurs relief, you were thinking of selling your business. What we need to do is we need to hold off on this for 18 months and then we can do it. And I can get you out of half the tax that you would have paid originally.
yeah,
That's what I'm there for. But I have a vested interest in what my clients do. And
yeah,
it's quite weird because when I meet with my clients, I ask them questions and they go, I don't normally get asked this by accountants, because I'll ask them like what their partner does, what their family situation is, what their home ownership is, what their plans are, what their dreams are. Do they want to buy a house in 3 years, 5 years? What are they talking about retirement? And they look at me and go, this is not really any of your business, buddy. And I'm like, look, it allows me to do my job better, because if I know, for example, that your wife wants to retire in 3 years, we can set your business up accordingly to say, well, why don't we give your wife some shares that are going to sit like dormant for 3 years? But when she then quits her job, she's got these tax allowances. So instead of them being taxed on you at 40%, we can get them over to her at 20%. It's still going to end up in your joint bank account, but you give 20% less of your money to HMRC. So when we spot these things in budgets coming through, changes in VAT legislation, changes in entrepreneurs, changes
yeah.
in capital gains tax, changes in all this stuff, we just pick out the stuff that we know is
So you
relevant to our
block
clients.
out the noise and try and find
Yeah.
the
So if someone's,
relevant
oh yeah, it's a
changes.
Freeport site. Yeah, great, brilliant. But because the legislation it's going to come out, but then it's going to evolve before it becomes actual legislation. What we will tend to do is to say, look, I know something's there. So I tend to just know, I'll know 10% about it. If I then have a client that comes to me and says, Nick, what I'm thinking of doing is doing this in a Freeport site, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, my answer is always the same. It's like, okay, fine, legislation changes. Let me just hold you there. Let me go and do some research and I'll come back.
Yeah. Well, what are the sort of like on the ground impacts of legislation changes to small businesses? Do they
So
have?
it seems like the government are putting in for small businesses. So I'll
Yeah,
just put that out there, and sorry if this sounds like a political bashing of anyone, but it seems to be that everything is just getting worse and worse and worse for small businesses. So corporation tax used to be at 19%, now it's at 19%, but they staggered it. So congratulations anyone who makes over 50 grand a year in profit, which by the way doesn't necessarily have to be. And where people kind of think £50,000, that's huge amounts of money. Imagine if you've got a director that's being paid by dividends, that's £50,000 before they've earned any money.
yeah,
So it's not, and 50 grand, by the way, I'm not in the ether that kind of goes, oh, 50 grand for nothing. It's big money.
yeah,
But when you see people who have spent maybe 10 years of not taking a single penny, I mean, I have clients that spent 5, 6, 7 years earning nothing, to then finally see their break, have another 3 years earning 30 grand. So over 10 years, they've now had 90 grand. They've had 9 grand a year. They could have got more than that for, working part-time at Tesco's,
yeah. And then they
not
get
putting their house
punished
on the
by.
line, not risking
Yeah,
their mortgage, not risking their family. But they've done this. And then they start to see, oh, they made 40 grand. Oh, they made 60 grand. They made 80 grand. People only tend to see it at the point where they're making 80 grand. What they don't see is they don't see the 10 years before it, where these people are kind of going along and living hand to mouth, borrowing on credit cards, doing whatever they can, leveraging any debt they possibly can do.
yeah.
And then they see the successful bit, and the scary part is that you now see it a lot in like these fake gurus and these like people online that are there going, oh, 10x this, 20x this, 50x this. The rule I always ask people is very simple, right? So you see this like this, it's rife in property. Be financially free. Do property by 21, you'll earn 6 figures and 7 figures and all this bullshit. If that's the case, and by the way, sorry if it's not an 18 podcast and I swore too much, but because like how people tend to work, and you'll see I get quite passionate about this. Always ask yourself the question, right? If they're so successful in property, and this is like such an easy thing to do, and you can hands-free, financially free, whatever, why are they in a Holiday Inn in Peterborough on a Sunday trying to pitch you a course of 497 quid? If you're making unlimited money,
They won't
6
be
figures,
doing
7
that.
figures,
Yeah.
you're financially free. What are you doing for?
Yeah.
And the reason being because they've probably got one house that they inherited from their nan that died. That qualifies them as being, oh, I'm a landlord and I do this. The stories will be false. The numbers they make is false. The claims they make is false. But the courses they sell you will be very, 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 very real in terms of the cost. And the costs will go, because it's a manipulation tactic that generally happens. 497 will be, okay, go on a 2-day course. Day 1 will be normal information you just find on YouTube. Day 2 will be pitching you to the next course. It's going to be 3.5 grand. The pitches to the next one. We've seen our clients, no word of a lie, where they'll go up to £100,000 they'll pay on a course because they're told they'll be guaranteed to be a millionaire. And I'll tell you how many of them have become a millionaire from it. Zero. None ever. They end up in debt. It's bad. It's horrible. You want to do something, just go out there and do it. Property costs you money. If you think you're going to do it for no money down, it's a scam. It's a course. Don't do it.
Yeah, sure. Why do you think the government has sort of made it harder for small businesses to thrive? Is it just like, are they unaware of the knock-on effects?
I don't think any of them have done it. So when you see like Keir Starmer, it's like, oh yeah, I know what hard work is because my dad did it. And it's like, well, how about you do it? That would be a nice thing to do. But all these people have kind of come from, oh, I've worked in this job, I've worked in this job, I've worked in corporate. No one knows like ground level. The impact it's going to have to drop a VAT threshold, the impact it's going to have to, increase corporation tax, the impact it has. Again, people can pitch these things where you think, entrepreneurs relief, where it used to be 10% and it's going up 14, 18%. Oh yeah, but all these like corporate fat cats that have made 7 billion, we should tax them on what have you. How about the person that's built their business up and after 10 years, they're ready to sell it for £100,000? Do you really begrudge them that they've built a business for 10 years, they've sold it for £100,000, which, bear in mind, you think of the blood, sweat and tears that goes into that for 10 years.
Yeah.
Or versus someone who just buys a house and sits on it for 10 years and makes £100,000.
Yeah. Well, like
that
you said,
£100,000
earning peanuts for 5 years.
The £100,000, right, that someone's made on a house. Well, they don't pay any tax on that because that falls under main residence, primary residence, no capital gains tax. The person who's built a business over 10 years and put their blood, sweat and tears in it and finally sells it for £100,000, not only do they get taxed on it, but the benefit they used to give them where you could get out at 10% is now going up to 14% and going up to 18%. And it's just going to discourage people from selling. It's going to discourage people from building businesses. And what's going to happen is everyone's going to go into jobs. And then you're going to find, well, hold on, the lifeblood of the country, which is small businesses, just going to find it's not worth it anymore.
So they kind of ideologically misunderstand the process of building a business because they think you're just at 100 grand
again,
first year.
You look at some of the countries where they have like tax rates that are really low. All I would like someone to just come up with a sensible concept that says, let's just really focus on what we're trying to do, because it's all good to say, if we want to raise more money, right, let's just start with the basics of just increase taxes. Okay. Wow. Look, isn't this brilliant? How about this? Why don't you reduce taxes down to 10% for big tech companies? Right. So imagine if a Google goes along and says, I want to go to St. Albans, right? So Google goes to St. Albans, they come in and they say, by the way, we're now going to recruit 50,000 people. You think of the impact that has on the economy. They're being paid very well. There's tax, there's national insurance. So all of these people, the individuals, when they're getting paid, taxes, national insurance, they get this, they get this, they get this. Because we're knocking a corporation tax rate down to 10% on a tech company, which, by the way, we wouldn't get anyway because they're stationed in Jersey or they're stationed in Guernsey or Switzerland or British Virgin Islands or whatever they're going to be. Well, actually, they'll just come here and pay 10%. So 10% we would have never have had. We've got all the employment, all the taxes that go with the employment, all the VAT that goes with it, the boost in the economy. But yeah, don't do that because that would be stupid. We just need to increase taxes. And there's an element where you think, no, somebody needs to think a little bit like beyond the basics of get more money, increase taxes. Because what actually happens is increased taxes. We've seen it right now. Increased employers' national insurance. What happens? People just hire less.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? Do you know what they'll do? They'll just outsource everything to digital nomads in Bali.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I remember.
And so all the kids are going off to college, going off to uni, coming out and not having any jobs because the government's put employers' national insurance up too high.
I read a good quote online the other day. It was by Churchill. He said, "Trying to tax yourself into prosperity is like standing in a bucket and lifting it up by the handle and trying to pull yourself up."
Of course. Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's utterly mind-numbingly stupid. But nobody has anything that's out of the box thinking.
Yeah, sure. Would you say
they have this thing of going, well, if we just tax more, we'll have more money. And
Yeah.
what do we find? We'll tax more and magically a new black hole, which, by the way, I have a really big issue with.
Yeah.
You know, how can the government possibly come in and go, we've done our due diligence on the old government, there's 22 billion black hole that we didn't know about? Does that not just make them sound incompetent, right?
Well, yeah.
If you're buying a business, like you're coming over to take over a business, and then you take over the business and go, oh yeah, I didn't realize they were just missing 22 billion.
Yeah.
Well, I'd just say that's bad on you acquiring the business, right?
It's just something you can blame everything on, isn't it? Oh,
and
can't do that.
And now you've got a new one that goes, oh yeah, we've now got a 50 billion black hole. And it's like, no. And the government needs to be held, and local councils and everyone, they all need to be held to account more for what they actually do. So, I mean, I'll give you a prime example, right? And this is just insane if ever you have a look at this. So every council, the government, what have you, has to do sets of accounts, right? Every business needs to do it, including the government. So you have a limited company, so small limited company, teeny tiny one-man band, whatever it is, but a limited company has 9 months to file their accounts. So if they finish in December, their year ends December, they've got till September to file, right?
Yeah.
Then you get to a bigger organization where you think, yeah, they've got finance directors and finance controllers and an accounts department and what have you, PLCs. They have 6 months to file, okay? The government that has local councils, they have accounts departments, they have endless whatever. Their set of accounts was 2 years late, I think, or a year late. They take like 2 years to file everything, right? And you go, oh, it's big, they have time to compile, but a PLC only gets 6 months. So it should be less time to compile. And the best part is on their very late sets of accounts, you have a look and you'll see that like of the councils that have reported, about 30% of them haven't reported any numbers at all. They've just estimated it.
Yeah, sure.
So everything that's working on, it's like I was taking you 2 years to produce any information, and the information is estimated because they haven't done what they're supposed to be doing. But you've got councils and what have you saying, we need more money, we need more funding, which would go on strike and get more money. And you think the person in their accounts department has one job: take the information and report it. That's your job. 2 years on, you haven't done your job, but you want more money to do it. And no one's being held to account. It's ridiculous.
Talking about tax and reporting, something I wanted to touch upon is side hustles. Now, I feel like a lot of young people, when starting a business, it will start off as a side hustle and it might transition into a company. Now, we've seen the eBay reporting.
Yes.
When a young person starts a side hustle,
Vinted,
when do they need
Amazon, so is everyone now.
Yeah, when do they need to pay tax? When does tax come into it? And when does it just even self-reporting come into it?
Okay,
and if you're under 18, does that
the answer
apply?
is it depends.
Okay.
And that's the problem, because if someone's working a full-time job, so they're using their tax allowances on something. So, for example, there's a common misconception that someone says, look, I've got 12,500 personal allowance. I'm earning less than that, so I don't have to report. But what they could be doing is they could be working a normal full-time job. They're earning 15 grand a year, and so their personal allowance is being used, which means they don't have another personal allowance for their side hustle as well. It doesn't work like that. So HMRC set the guidelines. So it used to be £1,000. So when you do your first £1,000, it doesn't matter. No one cares, right? Including HMRC. They couldn't give a shit. Okay. They then up that limit to say, look, if you're doing 3 grand, we don't really care that much. Please don't tell us. And then everything beyond that, theoretically, you should be paying taxes on. But it depends on your situation, because if, for example, if you go, well, I'm earning 7 grand, but it's, even though it's like a side hustle, it's a side hustle, but I'm at school, I don't have another income, then 7 grand's not going to be taxed.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be taxed because, again, people don't realize this, but when you're born with a personal allowance.
Okay.
So even if you're 6 years old, you've got a personal allowance.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just before we end this conversation, because we kept you for 20 more minutes than we originally planned to, because it's so interesting.
Look,
But,
wherever you want to talk about. Whoever thought you'd say that? By the way, Tom, you have to admit that in the pub later on. Like, yeah, I spoke to an accountant, took him 20 minutes longer because it was actually interesting.
well, for an entrepreneur who wants to stay financially smart, say a young person, how would you summarize your advice? Just nice and simply, just one thing you'd say to them.
Work out your way to make money and follow your passion.
Okay, great.
If you can monetize your passion, everything becomes simple.
Okay, great.
Because you'll do something you love, you'll make money doing it, and then you can scale it.
Sure.
Okay.
And just before we go, so you have a podcast called The Fun Side of Business. Is tax the fun side for you?
So hang on. Telling people what they've got to pay is only fun if it's less than what they expect.
Great. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all, Tom.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Harrison.
Episode. Hope you enjoyed learning about all things tax and business related, and we hope it helped you. So if it did, remember to leave a comment, follow the podcast, and we'll see you again soon.